Welcome back to Advertising is Dead. We're talking to Abhishek. Abhishek, welcome to the show. I'm excited to do this chat.
Super excited, Varun. I think been waiting for hitting the record button on this one with you. Super excited. First as a listener, now coming on the show and talking with you. I think it's been an interesting ride.
Now, when I first heard of GrowthX, and I found the model intriguing because while obviously EdTech is this vast ocean of a lot of things happening, this felt very razor focused on a specific need, primarily for people in leadership across product, growth, and founders. I want to ask you, how did this kind of start off? How did the journey of building it out start?
Interesting. I think let me give everyone background on what GrowthX is because few of them might not know what GrowthX is. I think GrowthX started off as a community for like founders, operators, mid-senior folks, right? A great analogy that we typically give is imagine if like LinkedIn, Zoom, Quora had like a baby together. That's the product, but for business as a function, right? Because that helps people understand what the product is. I think 2019 when GrowthX started, it was like a 8-week boot camp that we launched. Now it has evolved into a whole 1 year long experience. Most members come from marquee companies, very internet businesses, right? Razorpay, Google, Flipkart, Canva, you name it, and we have it, right? We have a challenge called Name a Startup in the Ecosystem, which is in top 100, and you will find a leader or an operator in GrowthX, right? Typically, people who join our strategy, founders office, product managers, marketers, 35% of the members are founders. And very interestingly, 6+ years of median experience. So it's a very mature community. It's not like somebody getting out of college and learning just paid marketing or SEO and jumping into GrowthX. That's not possible. I think the way we think about GrowthX is we are building currently the whole upskilling platform, but we are also thinking of building whole networking, mentoring, hiring, also like building async tools and frameworks. Also build, like, as I said, like a Quora for product growth and later expand into business as a function. And also help these folks do really good branding in the whole process. It could be internal branding, it could be social branding, whatever that is, right? And I think all of this currently is built on like pure no code. What we are doing is now completely productizing it end to end. Now, how did we arrive here, right? I think very interestingly, when I was at Dunzo and my co-founder Udayan, he was working at Razorpay. We both were in growth teams, right? And I think a lot of these things were a lot of this came from the fact that we were facing a lot of growth problems while working at these companies. And we were scrambling, we were helpless, to be very honest, on figuring out, hey, kya chalega? What will work, right? Yeah. And I think what will work led us to jam with a lot of interesting people. So I still remember, Varun, you are from Bangalore, so you will know this. There's a third wave coffee roasters in 4th block, Kormangla, which is like a very interesting place. There's a lot of freelancers come in. Yes. We used to go on Saturdays, Sundays, and just bring 4 interesting friends every week. And we are like, bhai, tera growth problem bata mere ko dekhna hai. Like, how are you solving it? So we had somebody who used to sell to, like, there's a guy who works at Whatfix. He used to sell it to Fortune 500 companies. Udayan was my co-founder, was working on long tail of small and medium businesses. I was always in consumer internet, right? And what ended up happening is we understood that a lot of our problems are solved in another domain, right? And we just have to go and like maybe become a sponge and understand the framework, why it works for those domains. And we said, why restrict it to just like 4 or 5 friends of us, right? We went to LinkedIn, we went to YouTube, and we said, cool, let's invite like 6 people. Let's throw a pizza Coke party on Saturday. Spend 6 hours. We designed a structure. We said everyone has to come there and define what the growth problem they are solving right now. And we will all brainstorm together and create an experimentation list. And I think this was insane because we used to get like 50 odd people applying every Saturday morning, and we used to pick like 5 people out of it, right? And jam with them for 6 hours. This essentially changed the ball game for the people who were coming to these conversations because they were getting a lot of solutioning and diagnosis at the same time. And we said, okay, let's keep doing it. We were not even, GrowthX was not even called GrowthX back then. We were just doing this for solving our own growth problems. And what ended up happening is this scaled to 50+ additions, right? And we had this beautiful place in Richmond town called the Bohemian House. We used to go there. We used to like just do jamming, right? After like doing like 300 plus community members there, I think we had two core insights. One, even the best of the best people lack structure to growth. And
Mm.
second, everyone craves to solve problem statements together. And I think that was like the holy grail of our insight, right? So everything that we have built at GrowthX is peer-to-peer led. So every experience has like a peer-led experience. And second is everything has a structure. Like we have a joke, uh, which is like you can't come on like GrowthX community and just post anything. You can't do that. There's a
Yeah.
structure to even posting and asking help, right? And I think
Nice.
one of the fundamentals that we have maintained is even when we are saying we are built for internet businesses or things that are sold on the internet, I think we're very, very focused saying ki, this framework could also be applied to like a corner chai wala or pan shop,
Mm.
right? So the rules and the frameworks are omnipresent. You can apply them to anything absolutely on business, but we are laser focused right now on internet. So that's how GrowthX started, to be very honest.
Do you think the gap also kind of came from the fact that I don't think growth is really taught? I think a lot of the other fundamentals are kind of, I mean, thinking, and it could be when you're in university, it could be when you kind of start off. I feel growth is something you kind of learn on the job. Because the markets evolve so quickly, and I think the growth function by itself is something which, like, if you feel that you know how a certain segment works from a growth perspective, it could totally change in the next like whatever 3 to 6 months, right? What it requires, etc. Like, I mean, I think about so many D2C people I speak to now versus what when I spoke to them about a year ago. Just like how they talk about performance marketing, right? I mean, it's like North Pole and South Pole in terms of how that works, and I think of so many other pieces that are part of it. Do you feel the gap kind of came from there, or do you generally feel this works even beyond growth for functions in all businesses?
Very interesting question. I think okay, let me say this. Growth is the most misunderstood concept out there.
Yeah,
Either people feel growth is top of the funnel, or
yeah,
growth is equal to running an ad, or growth is equal to doing some random hacks. We actually launching a T-shirt at GrowthX called "Growth is not a hack." Like literally, we're launching a shirt like that, right? Uh,
hallelujah to that is what I would say.
I think I think the idea with growth is I'll actually break it down, right? I think there are four components, right? Three or four components. First component is really nailing down with your team what is your North Star metric, which is धंधा किधर से आएगा, which
Correct.
is it paid customer, is it revenue, or is it something random other shit? Get that
Mm,
straight. That's first part of growth process. Second part is where are you and where you want to go on that metric,
mm,
and
mm,
being realistic about it. Third, what all impacts that particular metric in your organization from the time you do not acquire a customer to the time that they come on your product and start experiencing the product and refer, make like pay for a subscription, etc., etc., right? List them down and ask yourself, what are the core levers that will make a huge dent on that North Star metric. Now
mm.
prioritize and say, okay, how much effort is required to move this metric by whatever. Like we have a thing called, just pick all the metrics you have. If you double them,
Yeah.
the input levers, where will you land on the revenue? Simple. ये
Mm,
math कर दो, ठीक है? You will get a prioritization from there, and then apply a RICE framework. What has lower effort? What will take less time, etc. What
mm,
kind of skill sets do you have in the team, etc. And I think after that, you will have like core things that you need to solve for your business that will
mm,
definitely improve your North Star metric revenue, most probably. And
mm.
after that, you launch, okay, I want to solve, you mentioned D2C, right? I want to
Yeah.
solve repeat order rate, right?
Mm,
Somebody bought Damage and they want to figure out why people are not repeat buying. Now just
mm,
try to understand difference between people who bought that Damage ka product and who did not buy it as a repeat customer.
yeah.
What are the
Yeah.
different behaviors that they exhibit on the product, of the product? What is difference between उनका औकात है क्या पैसे पे करने का उतना? Did they get an
Correct.
aha moment? How did you
Mm,
acquire them? Was it like a discount? What was the price point? All of that, right? Like, did they had a bad experience with the delivery, the product quality, whatever? And once you understand this, you will have a list of hypotheses. You're like, यार ये चमका नहीं है user को, इसलिए convince नहीं हुआ है. वापस buy करने के लिए,
Mm.
or they you don't even have a use case, right? And
Yeah.
after that, you launch hundreds of experiments to understand, okay, cool, how do I get this user back? And
Yeah.
80% of the time you spend understanding why they are not coming back, and
Mm.
20% you execute on launching experiments on that funnel to understand कि वापस कैसे लेके आए user. I think that
Correct.
is growth, right?
Yeah.
If you think that one hack will get you like some insane growth, I mean, you're operating with luck. You're not operating with a structure that is repeatable, right? So, yeah, I think I answered it. I'm not sure if I answered the question.
No, you did. You did, and you gave me a few more pieces to kind of take from there, right? Now, one of the other aspects which I find super interesting is you would, I mean, the assumption would be, and I feel that's thankfully been broken by just the fact that you have been able to get so many people on, is that people don't like to share their secret sauce, especially growth, right? Growth is the one thing that everybody wants to say, okay, no, I have figured it out. I don't want to share, right? Which is the assumption because you always been told, right? Don't give away your secrets of growth. But here it's like, okay, let's all come together. I will tell you how I'm growing. You tell me how you're facilitating growth. So I will use your methods and you will use mine. Seems almost like, utopian. Like, oh, everybody is being like, this is like one happy family scenario. But because that's not what you've always been seeing in perception. So when you look at the core community, what have you kind of learned since you started it, and which kind of surprised you about just how much people kind of were willing to share and learn and also unlearn from this whole thing?
I think one of the experiences is on the first 8 week experience is getting over this Sunday, right? And I was reading
Mm.
everyone's feedback forms. I read every feedback that gets submitted. Even like one user submits feedback 14 times during the first 8 weeks,
Mm.
and I read everything. And one of the keyword that constantly comes up is unlearning and structure, right?
Mm.
And I think I have few things, right, on that zero sum game, and then whatever negative sum, positive sum, whatever all that bullshit is. I think fundamentally the next Google Pay scratch card experience is not going to come by copying what Google Pay scratch card did.
Mm.
The gamification is not going to be coming from copying that. What is
Mm.
definitely going to come is what is the distilled framework. Google Pay did it because the average order value on GPay for P2P, peer to peer, like me sending it to Varun, was less than
Yeah.
100 rupees. They also had a perceived value of shopping behavior and making money behavior of Diwali. And
Mm.
there was also an insight that most of the customers would do anything for a 250 rupees reward because the average value of their transaction is super low.
Yeah.
And that framework got them to do that whole Diwali campaign, right? So you going and copying just as is not going to help. So
Mm.
even if all the things are on the table, you still won't be able to figure out growth. Let's
Yeah.
admit it. That happens. And one of the things that we do at GrowthX is week one, when any community member gets onboarded to the community, we definitely speak to each of them and tell them, put off your guard. This is a safe place. Come discuss everything because this place will help you way more than you can add value here. We call
Correct.
GrowthX as the matrix, right? We have, I think now I have lost count, but we have, I think, 1,200 plus tech companies in India
Mm.
and abroad.
Mm.
6% are international. And imagine this, you want to partner with anybody right now in India. They are one
Mm.
Slack message away. So
True.
what are you worrying about? Who is going to copy it? Because we have, like, if you take D2C, right, we have like a lot of D2C brands. क्या ही copy कर लोगे? और copy कर भी लिया तो that's not the edge anymore because everything
Yeah.
is out there on the internet. What will matter is how brilliant is your insight about your own user. I also have this experience with, like, while working on Dunzo, right? I always used to think about that. Hey, a Swiggy product manager should not be speaking to a Zomato product manager because they might copy
Mm.
each other. Bullshit.
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way because the Swiggy user is going to have a different journey in the product than a Zomato user. The UI is different. The acquisition,
Mm.
the way they are acquired are different mix. The marketing pitch is different. The selection of hotels is like restaurants is different. There's so many things
Mm.
that are changing, right? Delivery times are different. They're gone to a
Yeah.
different experience. Zomato user has come from a restaurant discovery to ordering, while Swiggy user started with onboarding, like ordering food, right? So
Yeah.
I think fundamentally you cannot copy one product insight into directly into second. You will have to understand the framework and then execute brilliantly on it. And it's not easy. Like, you can't just pick one insight, execute, and you're all done, right? It's gonna be a very grueling process. I hate it when these all YouTubers and everyone go ahead and say that growth is do 5 things and you'll be growing. I mean, itna easy hota, to why are we getting paid so much?
That is
Right?
true.
You could just write a Google script for it, right? Why would you get a human being to do it? So I think that's fundamental to why everyone is so open. And I think we also have done that whole education to the user, right? Which is, matlab, I'll give an example. We had this. We have somebody who's like a very well known. He's currently a chief marketing officer at one of the Aditya Birla's verticals, right? And he's in GrowthX. He has 18 years of experience, a veteran in FMCG, and then got to Aditya Birla. And I was jamming with him in one of the GrowthX offsites that we have every 6 months. And I was like, I asked him, why did you join GrowthX? ठीक है आपने you did the 8 weeks intense experience and now you're a member and you're like crazy active now, but why did you do it? He's like, the insight is not going to come from number of years. The insight for me is going to come from number of experiences I will have with these members, because they are having exponentially higher experiences that I want to learn from. I don't want to waste my time to keep learning them by myself,
Yeah.
right? And that blew my mind, because then I thought, okay, that means age is not a factor of how well you can solve a growth problem. And I think that was mind blowing, right? Because I remember him completing one of the thing that we do is a capstone project where we give you a real world product and then we ask you to work on it in a team. And what ended up happening is he had somebody who was younger than him leading that team, and he
Nice.
learned from that person. I think there's some interesting insights that are happening with the right structure and right, removing the whole guard that we have, right? Like, we have these coverings on us कि हम नहीं सीखेंगे, like we will not learn from like people younger than me, or somebody has a lesser title than me. All of their
Yeah.
go away when you join GrowthX. So it's a very humbling experience for everyone, and it has come because I think we've been able to tell people the why of it, right? And I think that has fundamentally changed the ballgame.
And if you look at the initial part for you, the initial part of you building this and doing all of this was while you were also still, I think, initially working at Dunzo and then working at Cred. At which point was it a decision for you and Udayan to say that, okay, 1 second, we both, and he was working at Razorpay, if I remember right, and he was okay, 1 second, we're doing this on the side. This is becoming something. I mean, what was initially just look, let's kind of jam together became a whole piece. Um, how did that decision happen of like, okay, let's now, this is what we're going to do full time. This is what we're going to really focus on. And there's always a bit of a switch that goes off when you move from, I would say, a job to being an entrepreneur. And how was that jump for you and for him as well?
Got it. Got it. I think it was hard. I was getting married. I'll be honest. My father-in-law had a 1 hour chat with me when I told him I'm going to do this. My future father-in-law back then, right? So I think it was definitely hard going from like I think both of us were working on edge stuff, right? Like, it possibly can be on the edge of what enterprise and small and medium businesses for UD, and for me consumer internet, right? Like, we were growing like mad, right? Like, and I think one of the important thing that made us go with this decision was the GrowthX community. And I'll be very honest, the amount of love that the members showcase. I mean, I'll send you some screenshots in the Slack community. It's insane. It's insane. I can't even brag enough about it. And I think a lot of them literally used to ask us, so when is this becoming full time? When are you taking GrowthX seriously? Basically, the members are asking us, when are you taking us seriously? And I think one of the important decision points from just impact perspective, do I want to build for just top 1%, or do I want to fundamentally change the ball game for what business function looks like globally? And we always say that we just don't want to do India. We want to do more markets, but we want to do it right. We want to build the depth of the product first before going to new markets. I still remember I had this chat with one of the early investors in GrowthX. He's an amazing human being who can drill down any conflict of decisions, right? And he's like a mentor to me. And he asked me, Okay, you have raised this money. By the way, interestingly, 65% of our funding has been raised by the community members, right? For the first round
Nice.
that we raised, right? And one of the things that he asked me was, tell me what's the wildest dream if this works out. And I think the wildest dream is if in 2030, if 100 companies are going public, which are internet businesses, I want
Mm.
all 100 to have founders and leaders coming out of GrowthX. I
Yeah.
think that's the vision. There is no other vision. We want to build leaders, period. We don't want to operate like how everyone is operating, saying, I'll build a course and do 5 million customers every year. No, I don't think we'll ever serve 5 million customers in a year. I think at scale, we will look like 20,000, 30,000 members ever, right? I think the way
Yeah.
we are thinking about this is we truly want to focus on impact than saying how many people are getting in, right? And
Yeah.
like I always ask this, right? I always get this question saying, okay, Abhishek, why don't you scale faster and get like you could get like 1,000 members next month? Why are you not doing it? I'm like the whole power of community curation will be contrary to revenue growth, right?
Mm.
If I'm trying to get more and more curation, I cannot look at revenue goal constantly. Either I
Mm.
do this well, like I'll always relate it to something that we have seen, right? Because it's easy to relate for us. If Harvard
Mm.
would have thought how much revenue they make every
Mm.
year in the year 1 and 2, that's where we are right now from an upskilling vertical perspective, right?
Yeah.
They wouldn't have been here. Harvard's first 5,000 alumni changed the ballgame for Harvard. We're
True.
doing exactly that. The first 2,000 members, we call them the OG gang,
Mm.
they will fundamentally, and they are changing it right now. Like every day we have like 3 to 4 stories where somebody is going and leading a vertical in a tech internet business, right?
Mm.
Some of those stories are going to come in few weeks. We have already shot a lot of them, but I think that's what fundamentally we are focusing on. Again, I'm not sure if I'm riffing or I'm answering your questions.
No, you're actually answering my question, and you actually been giving me. So, what I always love when I'm having conversation, and I'm like, okay, 1 second, I can see this also go into multiple other directions, right? I'm like, how many companies do you see getting founded by people who met in GrowthX, which I would say would be one of the things to kind of look at and saying, no, we
Yeah,
met together, we jammed together, we were like, and like when you're talking to me about the young leader and someone who's much older being in the team, I'm like, I see that as a combination that could build a company in the future, right? And could at some point you become that company not only as teaching people, but also like ending up become a venture capitalist who figures a way to get them funds as well. And why I'm bringing this up is I feel what's the most interesting part is, and what you just said is, it's not about scale of number of people you bring on, which is what I think EdTech's one of its biggest problems is that the focus is always how many more people can we get onto a platform. But you can't razor focus on a category where scale will come with not adding more, but going deeper. And I think that's the most interesting part about the model is that you kind of tapping into people who are at that level and who have reached a certain maturity in their function, but also like because you're going to keep it focused and not as wide, you'll still be able to kind of keep the experience the way it is and maybe expand on that. Um, would you say that would be a good assessment of how you're looking at growing?
100%. I'll give you an example of Reddit. You go to
Mm.
Reddit, right? Reddit
Mm.
is, let's admit it, Reddit is for nerds, right? And we both are
I
nerds.
agree.
If you use
Yeah.
right, let's admit, right? Let's
Yeah.
let's
Sure.
let's admit it here, right? Reddit's one thread is about crypto. The next is
Mm.
about geopolitics. Okay,
Yeah.
the geopolitics people might want to listen to, let's say, Jake Tran, right? Who's like the guy who might get killed, right? Versus the
Mm.
crypto guys, maybe like just Elon, or like the Binance founder or whatever, the
Yeah.
Luna crisis,
Yeah.
all of that, right?
Yeah.
Imagine both those groups getting merged. What would happen? It will destroy value of both groups
Agreed.
because they are fundamentally behaving differently. What we
Yeah.
feel and believe in is business function is 6 functions:
Mm.
the founder, the strategy, and the founder's office, of course, the chief of staff. And then we
Mm.
feel like product, marketing, analytics, and the OG growth, which is no code, and growth
Yeah.
design. These will fundamentally change the ball game from business perspective going forward. We are not going
Yeah.
to the engineering side of it. I think the engineering side is solved to an extent, right? We want this community who has very empathy towards each other's problems.
Mm.
See, one of the interesting thing that we have realized is, I think somebody said to me in one of our offsites was, Abhishek, I have not built relations, I built friends here. And these
Mm.
friends are going to be with me for life. And
Yeah.
people have literally said that my social circle has changed, right? GrowthX, I want it to be a lifestyle. Like I have also heard this from members that GrowthX Slack is the first thing I look compared to my company Slack, like the company I work for.
Mm.
Like I open that first, check, okay, cool, ठीक है, मैं updated हूँ,
Yeah.
cool. Let's go to the company, let's start work. So I think that's also because of the laser focus. And as I said, the Reddit example, right? Cross communities are like, if you are building a platform and if you have like makeup design, right, and you
Mm.
also have like product, and then you also have like पता नहीं मतलब music सीख रहे लोग, right?
Mm.
They're
Mm.
not gonna go well with each other because they're gonna have like, they will feel like क्या है ये? मतलब everyone will feel for each other, ये क्या group है, मतलब I don't want to belong here.
Correct.
Belonging will not happen.
Yeah. I have a ton more questions to ask you, but I know we need to take a break. So we'll take a break and be right back with advertising instead.
Hello, hello, hello. It's been another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On Storytellers and Storysellers, Vineet talks to Azan Firoz Said. He runs the hub in Bangalore and they discuss how he's enabling next level creator collaboration. On Shunyavan, Sheila Ditya is in conversation with Piyush Ranjan, the CTO at CoverFox. He gives us some insights on the insurance industry in India and how technology plays a part. On Smarter with Sid, Siddharth talks about delaying gratification and how it may or may not work in one's favor. On Varta Lab, Akash and Naveen are joined by content creator and influencer Saloni Gore. They talk about how content creation happened to her, her character Nazma Api, and some hilarious Delhi Bombay stories. And on the Ideas Project, Anupam is joined by Mahavir Chopra, founder Beshak.org. They discuss the importance of insurance and how it's growing in India. Hey everybody, as you know, we've been beating the horse for merchandise, and you should go and get it now before we refresh our collections. And what's there right now won't be available forever, so go get it now. You can go to ivmpodcast.com, go click on the store link, and you'll be able to find the store, or go to beyondfollow.com/IVM, and you can go directly over there and pick up the merchandise. Also, remember, if you're following this show or any of our other shows for that matter, please do tell a friend. Social media helps, but not as much of word of mouth. But if you're a social media fellow, then go to our IVM podcast handle on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn and follow us there. Also, please do remember to check out all of our different YouTube channels. We have a ton of them now. You can go to ivmpodcast.com/YouTube, where we maintain a list of all of these channels. And finally, we'd like to thank our sponsors for this week: TransUnion Civil, Boat Lifestyle, Checkpoint Software, Small Case, and Intel vPro. Thank you so much for making this possible.
Welcome back to Advertising is Dead. We're still talking to Abhishek. I want to kind of flip to the other side of every business that's built. Is that how have you gone about building your team? Because while the people you're bringing on to be a part of GrowthX from a consumer standpoint are people at a certain level, etc. Teams are generally built with a mixture of people with experience, not so much experience, and so on. So, how has your focus been in terms of just hiring the right team? How do you look at it, and how do you look at that kind of scaling out?
Okay, let's admit it. Even hiring for us is hard, right? I think
That's
I think
everybody.
it's
The number one
that's
problem
I think,
everybody has is hiring.
yeah, I think there's some jadoo ki chhadi to hire great people, but I think it's also about uh, people product fit, right? We strongly believe that communities are core product, right? I've said this again and again to like everyone that I see in our ecosystem of GrowthX, that community is the core product. Everything is secondary. I don't care about everything else. I care about the community, right? I think one of the important thing that has happened with us is we have learned a lot from how Airbnb's first 40 people were hired, very, very, very honestly. And I think one of the things that they did was, firstly, every new hire had a conversation with every team member, and everyone had a veto power. It's not about hiring the smartest people on earth. It's also about making a great rugby team.
Mm.
It's also compatibility, right? And
Yeah,
because
yeah.
communities are core product, our non-negotiable on hiring is empathy.
Mm.
And if you cannot be empathetic, you shouldn't be here, because what the team culture is going to look like will reflect in the community. So
True.
this morning, to be honest, I was in Mobi office and we were shooting one of the great interesting stories of one of the GrowthX members. She leads the US market for them. And she's like, Abhishek, I have one feedback, which is it's the smallest things that you guys do that makes me feel welcomed and approachable to you guys. Like I feel like I can ping you and ask for like relationship advice, like personal stuff, because that's the amount of safety I have with this fam. And I think that's been because we have been able to hire. One is from the community itself, by the way. We have been able to hire from a lot of our past cohorts, and like somebody who leads our community is like the OG in crypto communities. Like he was like the OG in crypto, and now he's handling GrowthX community, right? Somebody who used to design curriculum for IITs, she's now handles all new programs that we are launching, because the current team's weakness is doing academia, like a proper conventional academia, right? And that perspective was not in the team. So we wanted somebody like that. Somebody who absolutely loves killer memes is like just doing social media, right? So I think it's also comes from the fact that we only want to hire for superpower, and non-negotiable is you should be insanely empathetic. If you don't have empathy and you are like the best person on that particular craft, thank you so much, but I cannot get you in the team. I think we are very, very honest about it. And I think that has made our hiring very hard, because people are great at craft, people have proof of work, people want to come and join the team. But when you do the whole culture fit for not just team, but are they culture fit? Like we won't do this with engineers. I'm not even kidding. By the way, GrowthX engineers don't get a PM to launch anything in the community. They directly launch in the community. So the backend engineer needs to understand how to talk when they get like shitload of escalations, right? I think that has fundamentally been key to hiring. But if like anybody in the audience knows somebody who's like an ST3 and ST2, please tell us. Hiring for them, especially on the front end. So if anybody's listening to this podcast, please check out growthx.club/careers and please apply to the roles that you might find interesting.
What I feel is also something I want to ask you is that whenever I ask someone saying, can you talk to me about where the edtech landscape seems to find itself today and where it's kind of headed, I feel it's too broad a question, because edtech is different things for different companies. But if I look at specifically where you find the position you find yourself in, what are you looking towards for the future in terms of not just internally in terms of product, etc., but just some broader trends for let's say your side of edtech, if I can call it that, because I feel that you are far beyond edtech, but I think if I just categorize you under that, then what are you looking at as trends for the future?
Yeah, I'll be very honest with Varun, right? I think edtech has been bashed left, right, and center right now,
So
right?
much.
So much, right? And I think it's actually good. It should be. Because if you are saying that you are going to revolutionize edtech and get people outcomes, you freaking better be getting outcomes for people. If you're not getting outcomes and charging them bonkers, people are gonna go mad at you, right? And that's what has happened. So it's fine. I feel like this is like the pepper tap moment for grocery as a category that happened. That made everyone's life hell after pepper tap, by the way. And I think we don't fundamentally think we are a tech product. We think one of the smaller vertical that we'll ever have is upskilling. But I think the most important thing that we'll have is community products. Now we are going to go deeper into community. Somebody who's already on the job, already has the tech skills. What else do they want? And we are going to expand there. And as you said, right, like maybe we'll like partner with every VC on earth and say that please invest in GrowthX founders. Our community will also co-invest with you if you are ready for that. But that's that's something that we'll look out in like few years, not absolutely right now. But what we are definitely focused on is getting people outcome. Two important things. One, for anybody who's in mid-senior and leadership and founders, help them build a growth team and hire great people and build processes that will get them business outcomes. So grow their career companies. And second is people who are like specialists and managers, get them into breakout roles or help them get the next promotion faster. Somebody starting as a marketing specialist should not spend 10 years to become a CMO. That's bullshit. How do I get that down to 4 years? I think that's what we are focusing on. So we will constantly keep evolving number of experiences for our members and not really saying ki 4 product khareed lo, right? So I think that's the differentiator. We'd never call ourselves EdTech because we are not. We know that. I think our members also don't consider us EdTech. They're like, GrowthX is pop culture.
Which is why I gave that disclaimer at the start, because I'm like, where do you categorize yourself? Because you're in learning, but you're also in community, and there's so many ways you can kind of go. So I think it's also always a good thing to not have. You can't be put in a box, so everybody comes up with boxes which you can tap into. I think that's always a good thing.
Yeah. I think also community is very qualitative, correct? The way we will keep our score is the outcomes. I think that will keep us in check. So we constantly have to engage the community, but also constantly get outcomes and build products on top of it to get those outcomes.
Yeah. I also have to ask, because whenever there's a co-founder in a business, I always want to ask is, how do you both function, and how does that dynamic work? Because there's always a dynamic of co-founders. There's always something to kind of learn from. So, how did the both of you end up jumping on this? But how has it been, kind of being co-founders, and what have you learned?
Yeah. You will laugh at this, but me and my co-founder met because of our love for foosball. And I am a defender. I'm like a very ruthless player. I'm like very competitive, and he's insanely competitive than me. We used to work at Sokrati. Very interestingly, Ashish, who is now president at Sokrati and was the CEO at Sokrati, he's one of the angel investors in GrowthX. And I think both of us used to play football, and that ended up making us friends in the process. And we're friends from 2016. And we constantly used to discuss, like we both used to jam a lot. I used to write content back then, and he used to edit my content. And he's like, "Aisa mat likh, aisa likh, right? Ye zyada chalega," right? And I think he had exactly opposite skill set as I have. He's a very focused on product side of things, and I'm very focused on growth and marketing side of things. And what ended up happening is I gave him super much FOMO about Bangalore and got him back from Pune to Bangalore when I was at Dunzo. Then he joined Razorpay. And I think every Saturday, Sunday was basically both of us hanging out, right? Did not had a lot of girlfriends, as you can imagine, but I think just hanging out in Bangalore and
playing football.
Playing football in every pub and bar we could get. And I think constantly discussing कि यार तेरे इधर क्या चल रहा है, क्या चमक रहा है, मेरे इधर क्या चल रहा है, right? And I think that intellectually connected both of us, to be very honest, right? I'm sure, Varun, it's happened with you, which is a lot of your friends that were your friends few years back, they don't intellectually connect with you. So you feel like left out when you go back to them and speak to them about certain topics. They're friends, but you can't talk to them about every topic, right?
For sure.
And I think that's exactly what happened to us, right? So when we came to Bangalore, none of our friends were talking what we wanted to talk about. They wanted to talk about girls. And I was like, what are you doing? Right? You are freaking 26, 27. What are you doing? Are you 18? Right? And I think that changed my social circle completely. And I started working with brilliant people. Let me admit that, right? I think one of the fundamental that Yudi and I both worked with some amazing people. And in that process, we realized that, I think we gel well, right? We used to do videos together. We used to do content. So before like GrowthX became full-time, we used to like produce something together as a project for at least 2 years before that, right? So I think that fundamentally helped us where I don't need to poke him and where I need to poke him, and the vice versa, and which areas he need to take an initiative and he's good at, and I'm not, right? And being very, very cautious about it, right? Because we're very fundamentally focused on two different sides of GrowthX. One is UD focuses on everything on product engineering and outcomes. I focus on growth, hiring, top of the funnel, and learning experience, right? So all these functions talk to each other, but they're very fundamentally different DNA, right? Like growth requires very hustle DNA versus outcomes require very patience DNA. So he's a more patient than I am, right? So I think that's what fundamentally has worked for us. Even our teams, right? Like if you look at product team, there'll be more patient people hired there. Engineers, more patient, right? Versus my team, right? If you tell them an idea right now, like if I text something right now, next morning it will be ready. I'm sure, right? And they're very, very different DNA. And that's how we hire, right? And I think even the first set of folks that have joined the team, they're fabulous. And now they are hiring exactly how we have hired. So now it has that compounding effect, right? Like you will get surprised we literally have tasks down to the last hour of the every month for every employee that they have designed for themselves. We have only given them framework, right? And I think that has come because of our complementing skill. Like for example, structure is something both of us love, and like it's completely fine. This month's goal hasn't happened, completely fine. But we did not even had a structure on what we were supposed to do. That is bullshit. That is unacceptable, right? And I think that has made sure that both of us keep constantly evolving on our own roles.
Yeah, and I think that focus on structure and systems, like you said, pays off in the long term. It's fine if a few goals aren't met, but I think at some point that cyclicalness and really like fine tuning of structures and processes really pay off in the long term.
It's just clarity. Like people feel empowered. Like I have seen, like I'll give you a random math, right? Just go to LinkedIn and look at companies which are sales heavy, and look at the attrition rate. People burn out because they don't have structure and they don't have long term goals that they feel ambitious about. They feel like a lot of companies have this structure, right? सुबह कॉल आता है, शाम को कॉल आता है, बोलते हैं आज का नंबर क्या हुआ. I mean, that's not going to work at all, because if you do that, then you are optimizing for all short-term goals and every member of the team is going to burn out. So we're very careful on even the team burnout, on how we do it. Like, for example, arranging like a therapy session for the team, or just we every 3 months, we literally fly down everyone to Bangalore. We are a remote first company. And 10 days, we ship one project together. That's all. No business as usual work is needed. Just ship one thing together. So people feel also like contributing to stuff, right? And people also feel like, yaar, mera baat bhi koi sun raha hai, right? And I think that is something that has helped really us on that piece.
Yep. Towards the later part of every episode, I ask my guests a set of questions, well beyond, and you're a listener, so you know what I'm talking about. Well beyond what the
this is the Varun Duggirala's version of Coffee with Karan, correct?
This is a not rapid. There is no fire in this. This generally is what I always have to kind of turn around and say, especially considering how Coffee with Karan has been this season. I think we're far away from that context right now.
My God,
but,
+1 on that.
But tell me something. What do you spend a lot of time doing beyond GrowthX that and beyond maybe foosball that takes a lot of your time that you're super excited to always kind of jump onto?
I think a lot of travel. I have kept a goal for myself that until I turned 30 this year. Until I turn 35, I want to see at least like one country every 6 months. So I just went to Singapore. Next time going to Greece. I have a roadmap on when I'm going. Even that is blocked on my calendar. And whatever happens, I don't care. I am gonna go and do that, right? And I think other things that take up time is my mom and dad don't live with me in Bangalore, right? Because it's just very different culture for them. So I think a lot of my time also spending just going back to my natives and just spending time with my mom and dad. My dad is 72, my mom is 60. So spending a lot of time with them. I think I take a flight every month to home. And I spend I work out of that house for like 4 or 5 days. That's like a discipline I've done for a long time. And I think that is something that has helped me just be sane and just be connected to my parents. Apart from that, I think in Bangalore, I think a lot of my time goes in just meeting a lot of people. I do something called Saturday breakfast dates, where I randomly ping anyone and I'm like, chalo milte Saturday morning. You're not from my circle. I want to understand what are you building. And I typically meet founders, right? That takes up time. And of course, like very, very recently married. I just had my first anniversary. So spending a lot of time with my wife, but that takes up most of my time.
Perfect. Anything you've read, listened to, or watched recently that you'd recommend?
Yeah, I knew this was gonna come. I'm prepared, and I knew the first question.
And I don't revise these questions. The good part is that it's not like I've ever said, okay, I need to hide these questions. It's like this. I mean, I think that as much as these might be the same questions I've asked now for like 4 years, I think they always give me like people fresh things to kind of tap into.
Very interestingly, I have a very different framework for this. I don't read something because I signed up for it. No, I think I am very observation first. Like a lot of people subscribe to, let's say, a podcast and they keep listening to it. I am very, very low attention human being. I will only look at the title and I will say, okay, is this worth my time?
Mm.
Right. So I borrow trust from the title. Of course, it will be from the host or the writer or the author, but
Yeah.
my more trust is on the title. So if you
Mm.
look at my if you look at my reading list, you will find maybe an audiobook का एक episode देखा है, या फिर like एक newsletter save करके रखा है, ये Saturday morning पढ़ना है उसको, right?
Mm.
Or I have learned more from people, because
Mm.
GrowthX is a community, and I'll tell you an example, right? Last Saturday, I went for a badminton with one of the GrowthXers, right? And he was working on a very interesting problem. And I'm like, मेरे को जानना है तू क्या solve कर रहा है, right? And I
Mm.
sat down with him for, after badminton, I sat down with him for half an hour. I understood the problem. I told him, ये चार चीजें करके देखो कुछ होता है क्या, right? And tell me if it works or doesn't work after a few weeks. I think I've learned more from that experience and learning from people than anything else in the world. But of course, like, I keep reading stuff that comes. Especially, I've like read a lot of these typical books, but I don't
Mm.
endorse any book, because I feel like books and YouTube videos are designed to spend you more, like, for the same thing you have to spend more time onto it.
Mm.
And GrowthX, I think, is exactly opposite, by the way. You spend minimal time to learn that particular thing, right? Because
Mm.
that's just the nature of the platform, right? Books, if it's not long, nobody is going to pay 1,000 rupees for it. YouTube video, if it's not long, you don't have 3 slots to monetize that video, right? So
Yeah.
I haven't, but I listened a lot to I think Johnny Harris on YouTube,
Mm.
and
Mm.
I think
I love Johnny
uh,
Harris.
yeah, and I think right now we are setting up the creative studio. We have set to an extent, but we're
Mm.
still setting it up. So Peter McCannon is like the guru there. So I constantly
Peter,
chime
yeah,
in on
you
him.
listed literally the people I go to the most, and then if you go to MKBHD, then that takes you down a very bad rabbit hole of like the YouTuber like masterclass of how your studios can be,
Ha.
which is a level of insanity. So I have to stop myself from watching all those videos often enough, because I am in this corner shooting my stuff, and there's literally like at some point there's stuff that's going to be thrown out of my house, because you have random like lights and cameras, and I literally have some 4 or 5 cameras in this house for no reason, and I end up
Oh
using the
my God.
webcam most times, uh,
You
because
you
I'm
have
when I'm
been
recording.
brainwashed by Casey Neistat.
Yeah, I've been totally brainwashed by Casey Neistat. I've actually, he's my like OG person to look at from like what I would consider a creative growth piece for me individually would be. Very similar in terms of mindset of, but I can't vlog to save my life. But beyond that, I think just a framework of thought is something I really relate to.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, but you did experiment with the vlog thing, right? I am your OG listener and OG stalker on Instagram. So you did experiment with it, the whole exercise
I try
series that
everything.
you did.
I try, and I still do that. My exercise series is like my thing. It's been like a work in progress. Now that I've been doing this road to 40, na 40 ho gaya. So now I have to like figure out what is it. Is it road to 41 or 50? But I think 50 is too far away right now. Still 10 years to go. Um,
I
what can you
actually
put
want to
together?
take a moment, right? And I actually want to
Uh,
ask you a question.
yeah, sure.
Varun, what is next for you? What makes you excited about? And I
So
think,
I actually
yeah.
sat down and tried to figure this out, right? And I've never really sat down and done like a purpose exercise, or never really sat down and worked on any of these things. So I actually spent time with a coach today. So, okay, I want to understand this a little better. And I realized that one of the things which I enjoy the most is sharing things I'm learning. And I feel like somebody, what, not just what I've learned, but I'm a constant learner. I'm this like super curious person who likes to learn everything. So one day I learned about biomechanics, the other day like I've suddenly gotten into mechanical watches and trying to understand how they work. So I ended up buying like random mechanical watches and understanding how the jewels work within that. So I'll go that far. But I feel there's something to kind of sharing that with the world and seeing what insights people can get with it. And extremely focused on mental fitness as an aspect. And I think mental fitness again tracks back to how I look at business, right? And I feel that most businesses are, if you focus on solving a problem, you focus on making people work together, how they kind of join together. So top up there for me is like focusing on how to propagate learning what you know to people out there. But also I'm at a certain stage in life where I do want to put some time aside to like spend more time with family. I'm like a full hands-on dad in that sense of the word. One book down, going to start working on my second book sometime next month. And I enjoy being a creator. I think being a creator has opened up a side of me which hasn't been open in a long time, because I started off as a producer. I use start of an MTV channel, all that stuff. So kind of going back to those roots in some that sense of the word. I don't know if I have another startup in me, but I'm sure at some point something will kind of come up. I enjoy jamming with more startups than actually thinking of a startup is how I look at it. Like I just enjoy that process a lot more. So I'm a tiny, I call myself a sporadic investor is how I put it, but I find that to be super like um, it's super helpful, and it just kind of helps me as well to kind of jam with people and understand where they're gonna head it. It's a very like arbit response to your question because that's literally where my head is at.
But if I were to just quickly double click on it, right? Do you
Hmm.
see yourself as a builder, as a content person, or do you see yourself like doing different things until you think that this is something that I would do not for the money but for what the joy of the craft, right? Do you think that stage will come for Varun?
I'm already at the joy of the craft phase, to be honest. A large part of all the things I do, like I started writing was the joy of it. I started podcasting because I genuinely enjoyed it. It came off as, can I even do it? Was the question. And now I genuinely enjoyed it, which is why I do like 3 podcasts a week, which is nuts. Most people ask me, why are you doing 3 podcasts a week? So the joy part is definitely a large thing there. Um, I have been a builder for the last 14 years. I think there's a side of me wants to take a break on the building part in the way I built it, because you literally like 2 people in an apartment grow to like 400, 500, 700 people now. That's another like thing, right? So do you want to jump back into that? Not really sure. If that's an immediate thing, that's really going to be something I focus on. But I feel the joy of it, and I generally feel the ability to do multitude of things. Right? I think that's the most fun part. Is that, can I in the morning, can I have like a business conversation with a startup? In the afternoon, can I work on a podcast? Evening, can I focus on Instagram? Night, I'm just literally jamming with a couple of friends who are also angel investors and talk to them about, okay, what's happening in this space? Why are we not getting any more decks? What's going on? And I think it's that mixture that keeps me kind of going in that space. And I now have a small team that works with me on my content, and the idea is kind of expand that up, build more pieces that really focus on. So I have 2 areas of focus. It's like, how can we work better and how can we live better, and somewhere in between bridge that gap. Which is why my Instagram content and my podcast content sometimes very different spaces. So I'm kind of focusing on what can we kind of create to kind of bridge that whole piece there. So that's how I look
Yeah,
at it.
100% agree on the last one. And I think it's an interesting insight for all of us, right? Which is what work on like podcasts will definitely not work on Instagram. It seems
Yeah,
very
for
different
sure.
type of audience.
Even the
Yeah,
same piece of content, that's the way you say it, the tonality, all that stuff. It's so different. It's super interesting to dig into that from a psychology perspective as well.
interesting. Awesome,
So my
awesome.
question, which
Sorry,
I've actually asked all my
yeah.
guests. No, that's I actually was happy that you asked me the question. It always makes me think, and I'm apologizing for my dogs barking in the background because that's definitely on the mic. Um, what can you put together in an instant?
A good egg omelette.
You'd be surprised that that answer has not come up in a long time.
Because that's the
People always
only
assume
dish
the
I can
cooking
make.
stuff comes that cooking stuff has actually come in much late. Hasn't come in that often recent times. So I'm happy to hear someone say egg omelette. No, I don't think we've ever had egg omelette. We've had Maggie. We've never had egg omelette in like whatever. Like we're close to like 200 episodes now, but we're not close. We
Yeah,
haven't hit
I'm I'm
egg
I'm
omelette
I'm
yet.
the lazy one. Maggie can get ruined, right? Egg omelette has very less chance of getting like spoiled.
But I mean, I would disagree. I think being a good egg omelette, there's a process to it. You can really go into that. I've gone down the rabbit hole of literally watching Gordon Ramsay videos to understand how to
Oh
make
my god.
scrambled eggs and omelets. Right. Like I said, I like rabbit holes are my thing. And what is generally my last question, which is an evolution of the name of the show itself. Why do you feel this form of community focus for growth will not die?
Oh my goodness. This is an amazing question. Uh, Let me actually think, right?
Hmm.
Let's take an example. What's the OG community in the world? History of humankind. What's the original gangsta in community?
I was going to say religion.
100% religion.
Yeah.
That's the community which has different faces, and religion has not died. Like it is not dying. Also, we see that it's not gonna die. It's gonna keep
Yeah.
evolving, right? But I think this is what we do at GrowthX, to be very honest. Look at religion. You cannot copy religion. You have to look at the framework behind religion. Religion has two, three things. One, it definitely always have one protagonist concurrently. It definitely has evangelists who are power users. They're constantly helping that particular narrative to get to new users. And these existing people who are following the religion, they practice the religion. So a community doesn't matter growth or not. It will not die if it constantly has protagonists that people pay attention to and have insane high perceived value. And I don't want to quote religion protagonists right now. I don't want to. I don't want to name anything right now. But I think one is protagonist. Second, are people getting outcomes when they follow that religion? And third, are you creating insane amount of power followers, if I may, who are constantly bringing new members and helping them practice the religion? That's what will make sure communities won't die. Community operators who will not do this will see their communities dying at insane speed. Think about all the religion that died abruptly, or they have like very little following now, right? Like in lakhs, not in crores in India, right? Look at the behavior, right? And I think that is the answer to really figuring out why some community will die or not die.
Super interesting answer, and I think it makes total sense to kind of like look at it from this lens, and there's so much to kind of unpack on that one, apart from all the stuff you've actually said in this conversation. But thank you so much for coming on Advertising is Dead. We focus on all things business now, and I think it's super insightful, like all the points you kind of touched upon for people to kind of tap into, and can't wait to see what you guys are really working towards scaling, not scaling it from a broad lens, like you said, like depth lens, how this kind of evolves for you going ahead.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Varun. And I'm excited for you to go ahead and enjoy the craft and have that joy. And I think you are going to evolve into someone who wants to do three things at a time. But I think you'll definitely find that wedge, and I'm damn sure you're gonna go deeper into one. Even if you don't know it, it will happen to you in like 6 months. If 2 years back somebody would have said, "I'm gonna quit credit," I'm like, "Are you mad?" I would have said them like, "Are you mad? Are you crazy? Like I'm on my top game right now. Why would I quit?" Right? But I think, I'm super excited for you also on that exploration journey.
Looking forward to it, and hopefully catch you whenever I'm in Bangalore next, or whenever you're in Bombay next, and we should